Here's an example of a lookup for an A record for gatech.edu. You can try this at your own command line by typing, for example, dig www.gatech.edu. Now there are some interesting things to note in this trace. Here is our query, and you can see that this is an A record query. Here's our answer. You can see that the answer actually has a CNAME in it, which basically says, well, you asked for gatech.edu, but in fact, what you really want to ask for is tlweb.gtm.gatech.edu. So then we issue an A record query for that name, and we ultimately get the IP address. These numbers here indicate the time to live, or the amount of time in seconds that the entry can be stored in the cache. Here's another example of a DNS lookup for nytimes.com. The interesting thing to note here is that in response to the A record query, we see two IP addresses. This is typically performed when a service wants to perform load balancing. So the client could use either one of these. It might prefer the first one, but if we issued the same query again, we might actually get these IP addresses in a different order. Now again here, you can see the TTL value, which indicates how long these A records can be stored in cache. In a subsequent example, we'll look at other query types that have much longer TTL values. Here's an example of a query for the NS record of gatech.edu. You can see this output by typing dig ns.gatech.edu. You can see here in the question section, now instead of an A record query, we have an NS record query, and our answer is a bunch of NS records that are DNS1, 2, and 3.gatech.edu, any of which could answer authoritatively for subdomains of gatech.edu. You can see that in addition to the answer, which return the name servers, we also need the IP addresses of those name servers, which is returned in the additional section of the answer. You can see here that we received not only A records for each domain name, but also quad A or IPv6 addresses corresponding to each authoritative name server. Here's an example of a query for an MX record, or the mail server corresponding to gatech.edu. Now here again you can see the question as the MX record, and you can see the answer, which returns two mail servers, as well as the additional section, which returns an A record indicating the IP address corresponding to the mail server that was returned in the MX record. In addition to the TTL, we also have some metrics that indicate priorities that it would allow a system administrator to configure a primary and a backup mail server. In this case, the mail servers just happen to have the same priority level.